god, I actually forgot this when I said that. Wow.
I thought you did it on purpose.
Wow.
Welcome to the Skiffy and Fandy Show in 2022, the third year of our Lord and Destroyer COVID.
Thank you, phone, for reminding me that we are now free from 2021.
Is that your tagline?
That's my tagline, yes. My phone was very delighted in that moment, so I'm going with it.
Awesome. I'm Sean.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Iori.
I'm Paul.
And on today's show, we will share what we most enjoyed in 2021 and what we're most looking forward to in 2022, though, through a totally arbitrary, or not arbitrary, rather, narrowing mechanism that I selected years ago that everyone will almost absolutely stick to, especially since the script makes it very apparent that I do not want people giving me their long lists, and for which I apologize, Iori. I just had to be fair and select you, even though I don't think you will violate this rule. So, but before we do that, a couple of quick things about the show, things you need to know, and so on and so forth. One, we're still primarily a BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, focused podcast in 2022, as we were last year. That's not changing. There's no new theme. We're not doing any magic themes because, by God, I cannot plan a year right now. That's not happening. But also, it just means that we're going to be doing a lot of what we were doing last year, but hopefully in some more targeted ways and some new and fun ways. So we'll be focusing on work that's by and about BIPOC folks in genre, bringing guests on as we're able to from those backgrounds to share their views with us, whether it's squee, criticism, or both. There will also be a State of the Show episode. We've not set an exact release date as of this recording, but it will cover what we're feeling about the show, what we're hoping to be able to do in the future. We just need to get to the things that we want from you and the things we need from ourselves and so on and so forth. So look out for it. It's coming. Feedback more than welcome. If you go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty, one of the posts that's on there is publicly accessible, and it is a listener feedback post that you can post at. Paul has already posted at that because Paul is a very nice and lovely individual who will do basically anything I ask him to do because he's nice. But if you are a listener of the show, whether you are a Patreon supporter or otherwise, you can go to that post and leave some feedback. Again, you do not have to be on our Patreon as a supporter yet. You can just go. It's publicly accessible.
And in the spirit of all of the lovely things that Sean has just mentioned, we only have 2 requests for all of you lovely listeners this year. One, we would like to hear from you. Your questions, your thoughts on the stuff that we talk about, your desperate need for us to cover a media thing that you didn't make but are really hype about because nobody else is talking about it, and by God, somebody on a podcast should talk about it. Please, let it be Skiffy and Fanty. We would love to hear all of those things.
Emphasis on thing that you did not make.
Yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Please do not write to us asking for us to cover your item.
We think that you're dope, and we love whatever it is you're making, but the thing that we're discussing right now is not the mood that we use to discuss those things, and that will come up at a later date. But if you would like us to hear the cool things that you are thinking and put together an episode where we can talk about that stuff, there is a way that you can reach out to us and let us know all of those cool thoughts that you have in your brain pan. Sean, what is that method by which they can do so?
You can go to skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions, and we will have 2 listener suggestion episodes this year, so just keep an eye out for those.
Right? 2 whole episodes, and you could be in one of those episodes. And you could say anything within reason, trademark. So please reach out to us. We would like that a lot. We want to hear from you. We are making this for you because we love you. Please, love us back. And second, we would like it very much if you reviewed this show and told all of your friends and family that Skiffy and Fanty exists and makes some really cool stuff. We want to grow, to reach more air holes, and we would like reviewers and word of mouth joy to do some of that work for us so we can continue growing and letting cool people know all of our cool thoughts. So if you go to iTunes, Podcatcher, or any other podcast review site and give us a review, say the things that you like about the things that we have made. That will help us reach more people. That will help us do more cool stuff for y'all. And that's what we want to do.
Amen. So it's time to get to what the subject of this is. This is our looking back, moving forward episode that we do at the beginning of every year, where we talk about the stuff that we really love from the previous year. Again, arbitrarily selected based on 3 categories in which everyone gets one option. So we're being evil about this. And then we'll talk about the stuff we're looking forward to this year, because there's lots of things to come this year. Many, many, many things. And so each of us has selected one book, one media object, such as a film or a television show, and one other thing that doesn't fit in either of those categories that we loved in 2021, and then also that we're looking forward to. And so for now, we're going to get to what we loved from the past year. And so, first things first, we're going to talk about books. What one book had you jumping up with joy in 2021? And I'm going to start with Paul.
Of course you were going to start with me. Because I read 10,000 books. Okay, not 10,000 listeners. It's a couple of levels a little high, but, I read a lot of books. So the one book I want to talk to you about is a debut novel by Serena Dillon, and that's Reset. Okay, a theme in dystopian, utopian fiction is this. How do we manage a society after things have gone so very wrong so that the mistakes of the past are not repeated? What would you do to make that society not extinguish humanity for good? And what is the dystopian price to pay? Do you engineer society? Do you kill everybody age 21 like Logan's Run? Do you stratify society and distort it in weird ways? Do you play a cynic of a tortuous soul, the dark heart of a seeming utopia? Serena Dillon's novel Reset takes a different approach in basically resetting everybody every few years, wiping out their memories, wiping out the connections, and letting them rebuild again and again in a quartet of cities, which is basically all is left of humanity, and have humanity survive by basically tamping them down so that they don't form these connections that go over and over again and cause conflict. But what happens if you start to remember what happened in the past? Or what if you start reaching out to people that you've had connections with that weren't completely wiped? What would you do to maintain and extend those connections that you're not supposed to have? This novel is very much a work of social science fiction. It's very much character focused. It looks at the problem from both the persecuted and the persecutors trying to maintain the system, because this is all humanity is left and this is all they know in order to keep humanity alive. It's a touching and poignant work that doesn't have any easy answers on what humanity should be doing after everybody else is wiped out. And the book moved me. It overwhelmed me with the passion of the main characters trying to remember who and what they were and trying to make connections that they're not supposed to have because they're afraid those connections will bring down society upon them and cause the troubles that destroyed the world before. It's a beautiful book. I love this book. I know I read big opera science fiction, big epic fantasy, but this story was smaller, more intimate, and it touched me. And I love it.
Wow. Hot dang, Paul. Well, who do you want to go next, Paul?
I want Iori to go next.
Okay. My book for 2021 was And What Can We Offer You Tonight by Premi Mohammed. Near-ish future sci-fi novella. I think Premi had a lot of really great, poignant things to say about exploitation under capitalism. It is very much a story of doing the best you can within a dystopia when you don't have the power to change the entire system. How do you protect your own people?
I see some resonances between my pick and your pick.
Oh, I need to go read yours so I can find out if that's true.
And vice versa. I've read other of Premi's work, but I haven't read this one yet.
I've heard good things. And I know Premi's work is fantastic. Yeah.
It is really great. I blasted through it in like the space of 3 hours while I was waiting for some paperwork at the ward office.
Nice. Well, who do you want to go next?
Brandon,
Oh, that's me.
tell us what to read.
So, like, the one thing that I read in 2021, because I actually do not read as much as everybody else did. COVID has me kind of struggling to engage with content for the most part. But, of the things that I did read, I am very grateful that I did get a chance to read Cadwell Turnbull's No Gods, No Monsters. I adored this book. We actually got to interview Cadwell about this book in 2021, for which I'm also grateful, because Cadwell is a brilliant person to talk to every single time, and I'm very glad that we got to chat about this book in particular, about what it says about our relationship to what we consider monstrous, and how that is obviously political, but also the ways in which marginalized people create the systems that are necessary for them to continue surviving in a space that considers them hostile. And the fact that that is actually the driving heart of the book. Not merely just, what do you do when you see something that you do not like and have to fathom the other in complex ways, which is also very important and very significant. But what do marginalized people do in order to continue the state of their own survival, and how much of that is just being able to admit that sometimes you're fucking tired and just want to watch some TV and hang out with your friends, and those things are also very important to me. If you haven't read The Lesson, read that too, but that came out ages ago. We're talking about 2021. What I'm saying is, Cadwell Turnbull is brilliant, and you should read everything that he has to write. But No Gods, No Monsters is one of those things, so read it.
I consider it to be one of the first most significant books of the 2020s.
Yeah. If, when I turn old, this is not what people are referring to as the canon, I'll get very upset.
I'm very much with you. It is a fantastic book. I'm presenting on it at ICFA this year, so because I just had to.
So you have to record it, is what you're saying. I need to see what that presentation looks like after the fact. Or else you would have specifically hurt me.
I'm curious what the presentation's going to look like too, because I haven't written it yet, so... This is interesting because so far everyone has offered more or less some form of social science fiction, you know, dealing with fairly serious issues and exploring the dynamics of those, which is really cool. Okay, so I guess it's now my turn, which is the book that I would pick that is not Cadwell Turnbull's No Gods, No Monsters is also a very different kind of book because it's a whole lot of fun. And Brandon will know it very well because we may have interviewed the author about this one too, which is P. Djeli Clark's A Master of Djinn.
Oh, that was one of my backup picks.
We have interviewed P. Djeli Clark about a number of works that he has written in the last couple of years, including his really fantastic novella, which everyone should absolutely read immediately. But A Master of Djinn is also following on the heels of some of his novellas in his alternate version of Egypt, dealing with a detective and some of the sort of like magical universe things that he's dealing with the Jinn and other kinds of entities. I really loved his portrayal of the Jinn as these beings with motivations and interests that don't necessarily align with humans, but aren't necessarily inherently against human interests, and so that requires a certain delicate degree of politicking. There's great moments in A Master of Djinn in which the main character very cleverly finds ways to work around the contractual arrangements of Jinn, which at one moment gets the Jinn rather pleased with her, which I really appreciated. I think it is, in terms of fiction that I think of as being largely very fun and exciting and playful, P. Djeli Clark's A Master of Djinn is at the top of that camp of writing. It is a lot of fun to read. He does a lot of research, which is astonishing because there's a lot of bullshit research on Egypt, and he actually digs into some of the more legitimate stuff about Egypt, which I really appreciate, while also doing the kind of fantasy thing of imagining alternative ways of living. It does deal with some issues such as colonization, given Egypt's history, but it is such a fun book, and I really recommend that folks read literally everything that's been mentioned. If you're looking for a list of stuff to read from 2021, just take our books and do that.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, we've gotten to books. Now we get to go to media, including film, television, and other media-related objects. And so, I'm going to select the order again. What is a media object that brought you joy in 2021? Brandon.
There's only one answer to this question. It is the source of the most joy that I got out of 2021. The experience of being able to imagine yet again what it would be like to see wealthy, terrible people suffer their necessary comeuppance in the world by way of more leverage. So 2021 was wild because they decided to give us Leverage Redemption, which a lot of Leverage fans thought was like a pipe dream at some point, and then it was promised to us, and we saw trailers, and it was cool, and then we saw the first episodes, and they were legitimately some of the best Leverage content that I have ever consumed in my life. I love it a lot. It's still funny and strange and incredibly genre savvy, but in 2021, the time when most of us have genuinely suffered even more weird capitalist bullshit that has increased our rage in the world, there is a unique kind of joy in not just seeing an episode of Leverage where you kind of know what's happening here and you know exactly why this person needs to be punished, but instead you're seeing someone who has actually hurt you or people that you care about in massive scale, someone who is in the news right now as this episode is airing, get their comeuppance in an episode. I still have a lot of feelings about the fact that technically Martin Shkreli is in this show.
Yes.
Because he fucking deserved it. And I'm so glad that it was also in an episode where the main focus of the con is a trading card game, because that's right up my alley. 100% my jam. It's one of those, like, the longer that I think about it, I'm not just delighted in the fact that it gave me the thing that I enjoyed, and it gave me a great deal of catharsis in a time that has been incredibly, like, stressful for a lot of people in the world. But Leverage Redemption is, like, that platonic ideal of bringing a show back, wherein nothing sucks and everything is kick-ass all the time. And they're going to have a season 2, and I'm very hyped for that very soon. But I'm also very excited to be able to say to people who, if for whatever reason, heaven forbid, you've never seen any Leverage, start with Leverage Redemption, because those are the episodes that are actually going to hit you the most, because that's the show saying things that you actually experienced. And it's very wild to live in a time when they gave us this catharsis again, and I'm very excited for more of it. So that's me.
Who's going next, then?
You, Sean.
Oh, you're a monster. So last year was a I'm going back in time binge year, because I watched a lot of stuff either that I'd already seen or stuff that I had never seen but was interested in watching. And so the thing that I'm going to suggest that folks should check out is a film Brandon and I talked about from 1975 from Ousmane Sembene, which is a film called Hala. I get it, it's not from 2021, and I just don't care because I found it utterly fascinating to watch this film. I also read the book, which was really interesting. So I've got these sort of very different angles on how this thing came to be. It's a very interesting movie that's about the end of French colonization and imagines a corrupt government that emerges out of it, and then a curse that one of its corrupt officials effectively gets put on him, which prevents him from being fertile and virulent, as it were. Basically erectile dysfunction. And it's the various ways culturally in which he's trying to resolve this, while also dealing with the fact that the government, which is trying to be a native government, but is also very much rooted in French forms of business and governing structures, is deeply corrupt. And it's about the innate corruption that exists in his native home. It's an amazing film that is shot in a very unique and compelling way. I know Brandon also was really interested and compelled by this movie, and it's a film I recommend folks watch. It is very lightly genre, but I just think it's utterly fascinating and is well worth seeing. You can find versions of it on YouTube. There are probably DVDs floating around somewhere that cost way too much money. Ousmane Sembene honestly should be more considered today. His film should be easier to get access to. But if you've never seen Hala, I recommend you see it. And Hala is spelled Xala for those that happen to be looking. Check it out. Brandon knows I'm right.
I mean, you are right. Hala is a wild-ass movie.
It's an experience.
And also, like, this is my plea to people listening to this episode. Even if we aren't the people who are asking you to do this, please consume more media from outside of the US and Europe. Hala is a very complicated movie, but it is also, like, a core African film. Like, it is... Ousmane Sembene is, like, a revered filmmaker in Senegal. And this is a work that is not only uniquely cultural, but, like, is strongly, obviously genre, in a way that we would never contend with if it were made in the US in the exact same way. And if you've never seen as many African films as you think that you should be watching, and I'm willing to bet that you haven't, start with Hala. It's wild.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over now to Iori. What is your media object you wish to share?
Oh gosh, I did really agonize over this, but I think it has to be Macross F Toki no Meikyu, which was a 20-ish minute short film shown before Macross Delta Zettai Live. And, it doesn't actually advance the plot very much, but it is so pretty. Ranka's sort of like grown-up adult redesign with the new lowlights in her hair looks very, very good. And Kano Yoko brought her A-game for the music. So it was only 20 minutes long. I spent 17 of those 20 minutes in tears.
Aww.
I am not going to spoil it because, again, it gives approximately half of a plot development.
Oh.
But I do strongly recommend it to anybody who loved Macross F and, would like that to keep going, especially if they are not happy with how it ended.
I'm now starting to understand why Macross means so much to you.
You don't know the half of it, buddy.
Oh, Lord. I've consumed no Macross content, but I am very intrigued.
Really?
Brandon, we're going to fix that. I'm going to make you watch 7 with me.
Like, not even, like, original stuff?
I am a weird anime nerd. I've consumed no Macross, I've consumed no Gundam.
Oh my god, we are fixing both of these this year.
Even I've watched an episode of Gundam. Wow.
Yeah, I've been somehow spared. We'll deal with that, but yes.
I actually crossed out my top and my second picks as you were all talking. Like I'm realizing I need to go a little less perfectly commercial. But my topic was way too commercial compared to the three of you.
No, you can be commercial.
Like
That's fine.
Macross isn't commercial.
No, I'm just curious what it was.
When you say way too commercial, do you mean it was like literally a commercial? You're like, oh yeah, that Super Bowl Budweiser ad is the one I paid for 20.
It can't be literally a commercial. There wasn't a Transformers movie this year.
Burn,
Oh,
sick
Lord.
burn.
Anyway, I'm gonna go with the series Ragnarok from Netflix Norway, which I watched with some friends over 2021. There's 2 seasons of it now. It's a take on Norse mythology, basically centering around a high school kid who he and his family wind up moving to their parents' hometown, and he turns out he is the reincarnation of Thor, and his genderqueer brother is the reincarnation of Loki, and there are giants running the factory that's polluting the town, and he has to be a hero now, and he doesn't want to. The landscapes are wonderful. The character interactions are great. It borrows a lot from Norse mythology in all nice subtle ways. It was an entrancing look at the old myths in a modern setting and a modern light, and a really reluctant kid who's been thrust with power that he really doesn't want or know how to deal with. And he's got, when the giants found out he's there, he's got these existential peril of his life. And of course, his brother, being Loki, is kind of torn between his brother and the giants for reasons that will be absolutely clear. I mean, they made a genderqueer Loki who's fluid in his sexuality, which I really, really appreciate. They could have made a straight up Loki and that would have been okay, but they actually went there, and I really appreciate them exploring some of the complexity of the Loki myth.
Are they actually going to handle the horse thing?
I don't think so, but they handled the Midgard serpent in a weird way. But I don't want to give away how they did, but they have a Midgard serpent. It's a very weird way they did the Midgard serpent, but it kind of works.
Okay, but he had sex with the serpent, is what you're saying, instead of the horse.
No, the Midgard serpent is a child of Loki.
I am right. Like, I'm not wrong. There's like horse sex, right?
In the myths, there's
also shapeshifting.
Loki gets it on with. Yeah, Loki's a shapeshifter and gets on with things in the myths.
Gets on with things like he turned into a horse and then was like, oh, this other horse is really cute, and like took the horse on a date.
Basically.
Got it.
Yes, Loki was known to do that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The others are a party, Sean.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess if you're also a horse, like whatever. Like,
I mean, it's not quite Zeus.
I mean, It's not worse than that one fox scene in The Magicians, right?
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah, because they both turn into foxes, and then they like are psychologically traumatized by the fact that they boned as foxes.
I forgot about that.
And they just can't. They like spend 2 episodes constantly referencing of like what it was like being a fox and boning as foxes. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Now
What?
The Magicians is amazing. It's a absolutely fucked up show, but it has these moments where like characters go through something and the characters like have to be traumatized, like because you would be if you went through some weird shit like that.
Every time I see or hear about the Magicians, it sounds less real each time.
All right, so now we get on to our last category, which is our other category, or as I like to say, the Skiffy and Fanty Show's best related work. Because this is the category for literally every other possible permutation of thing you might have that's not a book or a media object that you would like to include, including experiences, events, moments in your life that were really important to you, or I don't know, the time that Loki came down and talked to you for a weekend, if you would like to include that, preferably not as a horse. But
We are just treading the bare edge of stumbling into sponge cake discourse. Let's back away from Loki.
I am sorry for bringing up Loki. I should have gone with my original pick. We wouldn't be talking about Loki.
You didn't do anything wrong here, Paul. You did nothing wrong here, Paul. Let's set
I
the
am
record
100%
straight.
responsible.
Sean is obsessed, not you. Oh my word.
I am a
Continue.
bad person. I'm sorry.
Good lord.
Iori, if you be so kind, what is your other thing that you would love to share from 2021?
We will link this in the notes. It's got to be Suzuki Minori's Covers Collection, which is a series of 6 cover songs, each shot in one take, that she released to promote her single Saihate. And the one that I specifically want to highlight is Unknown Mother Goose, which is a song that was composed by Wowaka, may his name live forever. This was originally a Vocaloid song, and Minoringo just really pushes the limits of what you can do with a human voice. Because a lot of Wowaka's songs are demonstrating the technical complexity of what can be achieved by Vocaloid, both in terms of speed, vocal range, and pitch. So her cover of Unknown Mother Goose is amazing because she does it in the original key, which means that in the chorus, there are just a couple spots where she is blasting up into her whistle register. Unknown Mother Goose also has some hayakuchi segments. God, how do you say that in English? Just extremely fast delivery in the B melody. It is honestly just technical masterclass level work. One of the most amazing vocal performances that I've ever seen. So yes, Suzuki Minori's Cover Collection. Fantastic work.
That sounds really interesting.
I'm very intrigued all of a sudden.
Mm.
I'm not familiar with this song.
Oh, I'm going to make you watch this video when we're done recording.
Oh yes, please.
Paul, your turn.
Okay, so one of the things I got into in 2021, I mean, I've been playing role-playing games for a long time. Long time. But getting into role-playing games online and on stream and watching other people stream kind of was a thing I discovered during this pandemic. Never really considered before as a art form or something you could actually watch and really enjoy, coming week after week to watch a group of people play. I really got into this in 2021. In particular, a group of strange friends came together on Gregory A. Wilson's, aka Arvin Elrond's channel, to do a Blades in the Dark actual play series called The Case of the Cindered Seal. It was GM'd by Brandon O'Brien. Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
Included Valerie Valdez, Michael R. Underwood. I can't pronounce Joey Lynn's name, and
Yoi Gawain Lin.
thank you, and Iori themselves here as Of the Flame of the Ash. It's like 4 wonderful players and a wonderful, immersive, inventive, and crazily prepared GM who sometimes had to deal with things really out of the blue. It was immensely entertaining to come in week after week or try to make that. So I mean, watching video on demand of it is fine, but watching it live was a joy every time I was able to get onto the stream and watch watch these 4 players and the GM just make gaming magic.
Oh.
I am very flattered, especially since you said I was prepared, because I made no notes beforehand for that campaign.
Then you are the best
Nice.
Panzer GM I've seen.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, Sean, what's your favorite?
Okay, well, mine's really personal and kind of selfish, and I just have to get it out there. Mine was an event, DisCon, which I realize had many issues, but I got to attend DisCon, and I didn't realize how much I needed to attend an event with people I like, and see some of the people, including Paul, in person again, because I'd seen Paul a couple of times during the pandemic. Like, I think just once. I think I've only seen you once during the pandemic, but like I'd not seen Stina in a while. There were a bunch of other folks who were there, like Trish, who I'd not seen since before the pandemic. And I hit maximum burnout in October of last year. Like, I was forgetting everything. I'm sure Brandon had to deal with me a number of times where I just flat out forgot something we were doing for this podcast. There's a reason why a bunch of episodes got released in a mad flurry before Christmas and then a couple after Christmas, because my brain shut off and I was having a real trouble. And this helped me in ways I was not expecting, to just be there with lots of people, get to go to some panels and stuff and talk to folks. I got to meet Brent Lambert and tell Brent to his face that he was going to win, even though he said he wasn't. I'm telling you, Brent, you were going to win. Told you. I got to meet lovely people. Brent is, I adore Brent, just to be clear. He is absolutely a lovely human being. I got to see Arlie Sorg again in person, which was a delight. I got to meet a bunch of other people. It just really helped me feel better. It didn't fix everything. I'm still very burnt out, but I'm less burnt out than I was. I will obviously put a lot of caveats on that, which is that I am super privileged to have been able to go. A lot of folks, including members of this show, could not have attended for various reasons. Some of them financial and some of them to do with the pandemic. There are also other folks who had troubles with attending this event and other people that couldn't attend for all kinds of reasons. So I recognize that there's a lot of privilege in that. And while that's not the purview of this particular episode, primarily we're talking about joy, I just have to mention that out of an abundance of honesty. But I did get a lot out of this that I think I missed human contact with my people. So thank you, all the people who said hello to me at DisCon. I really appreciate it. I also just want to say that, Brandon, I don't know, I might have been slightly intoxicated when I saw you on that little screen thing that they put in the like reception room.
A little,
But,
yes,
like,
sure.
But was I really that? I wasn't that intoxicated.
No,
was I?
no, you weren't. No, you weren't.
I'd had a few, and they were making them really strong in there. But like, I was so happy to see they put the little screen thing up so that people who were coming in virtually could talk. And I really love being able to say hello to you, Brandon, because I love you, bud. So there you go.
Too. I appreciated that as well because you know me very well. I've been to World Cons before. You've seen me become very emotional at World Cons, especially on Hugo's night. So I just saw two buds having emotions. And I delighted in having that moment. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we had a good time together at DisCon, John.
I always love seeing you, Paul. You're one of my good friends. So that leaves Brandon. Brandon, what's your other thing?
So like Paul, I had an RPG thing. Because I have a bag of RPG things. There are lists of games that I have bought simply under the pretense that I will at some point play them. But the thing that I am mentioning is in fact a game that I had played, and I wasn't initially going to mention it before. And then Paul just kind of triggered feelings in me. So I decided I would mention the thing. So, the context is, earlier in the year I backed a game on Kickstarter called Shiva. It's rad. If you just want to play a one-shot of a slasher movie with all of your friends, it's a very good system for that. It's actually very, like, concise and easy to play in that regard. And when I backed it, I was like, I just want to do a silly thing for Halloween, because Halloween is falling on a Sunday and I stream on Sundays, so hopefully I'll get some of my cool friends to play a thing with me. And I kept nagging them for several months, and it never actually solidly materialized. And then, closer to Halloween, we were like, you know what? we should do a thing. But you know why we should do the thing? We should do the thing because sometimes being a writer is actually very painful and stressful and annoying. And we could do with having an opportunity to just vent about that for 3 hours while also rolling dice. So, with my strange friends, which includes Yoi Gawain Lin, Michael R. Underwood, Valerie Valdez, and Iori Kusano, we played a one-shot of Shiver called Death of the Author, which is a very cathartic experience if you know what happened. If you saw it and you were hint, hint, nudge, nudge at some world cons, all of these experiences are experiences that you've actually had. But outside of the fact that it gave me a personal opportunity to be bitter for 3 hours, I appreciated an opportunity to be in a space with my colleagues where we could just be vaguely honest about what it's like to be in this space. And no, we didn't have to say anything or call anyone's names or obviously refer to some of the worst things that have happened to us. And still know we are seeing each other and going, hey, I see you. That was bullshit and I'm very sorry that happened. And I wasn't going to mention it because the very next other thing that I'm going to mention is also related to Shiva. But I felt like I needed to mention that happened because the thing that I value about that moment wasn't that we played Shiva, although Shiva is rad, and you should watch the VOD of that game because it was also very cool, but because it gave us that opportunity for catharsis in an industry where often we do not know that we can talk to each other about how shitty it can be. So yeah.
I didn't know about this, but this sounds really interesting.
It was tremendously fun.
It was an amazing experience.
Cool. Got a whole lot of stuff is going to be mentioned about Brandon on this podcast. So.
Oh my god.
And Iori, I will just note. Iori is also getting more I think in total, unless other people have more things, both Iori and Brandon will be mentioned in things at least 3 times.
Okay.
So, hope your egos needed the boost.
I was fine, you know.
Always.
I'll take
always.
it. I'll take it. Today was a
100%.
very difficult day, but I wasn't expecting it.
Well, okay, so I think we got our 2021 down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it is time for us to get to 2022. So there's lots of stuff that's happening this year. A lot of things we still don't fully know about because it's hard to know what's happening in the second half of the year, especially in publishing, because things aren't always announced. So with that in mind, we're going to offer our vision of things that we are looking forward to that we know is coming in the same 3 categories, because 2020 is a year of, we're going to call it the year of looking forward to exciting things that don't make us depressed, which I hope is that's the exact wording everybody uses, and that when New Year rolls around, we say goodbye to that year, and that is literally what's his name and Anderson Cooper both drunk mentioning this at the New Year celebration, because one of them definitely was very drunk at the New Year celebration this last time around, which brought me much amusement.
Brandon and I missed that. We were watching Kohaku.
I mean, I
Yes.
watched it after the fact. I watched bits after the fact, and watching just how drunk he was while he yelled at Mayor de Blasio, which is kind of hilarious.
Andy Cohen was blitzed, and it was very delightful, and I'm glad that I witnessed that after it happened. Because I'm sure live, someone backstage while that was happening was like frantically finding which button to press to shut down the whole transmission.
In any case, with that in mind, I am going to jump to Iori with a book object. What is the book or literature book objecty thing that you're looking forward to this year?
It has to be Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir.
Ah.
I really, really love both Gideon the Ninth and Hera the Ninth. I am extremely looking forward to the 3rd book in what is now going to be a 4-book series. Yay! Look, I know that on a logistical level, it presents so much difficulty for everyone in the production process whenever a trilogy gets bumped into, okay, yes, sorry, there's going to be another book. You know, like Baruch Cormorant series as well. But for me as a reader, every time that happens, I just get joy, delight. Yes, I get a whole extra book in this thing that I am enjoying. This is fantastic. I mean, so yes, bad news for everyone who has to make the thing happen. Fabulous news for me. I'm 110% here for lesbian necromancers in space. It is a delight that someone else is on that aesthetic wavelength. It's everything I want out of the world.
Science fantasy is one of my jams. I imprinted early on the idea of mixing science fiction and fantasy thanks to cartoons like Thundar the Barbarian. So, I mean, this is very much science fantasy. So, yes, this series is very much my jam as well for that reason.
Absolutely.
Lesbian Necromancer's face is already a very good pitch. And it just so happens that Tasmir is also very brilliant.
And, you know, I think science fantasy is where it's at just because when we get into space, we're not going to find less magic. There are going to be more exciting things we can marvel at and more ways we're going to be able to push the boundaries of what happens. And it's going to be a long-ass time before we can figure out why things are happening. Might as well call it magic.
That's why I'm a Star Wars fan.
Sean, it's your turn.
Okay, well, great. So the book that I am looking forward to this year comes out in February, I believe, which is the Valancourt Book of World Horror Stories, Volume 2, edited by James Jenkins and Ryan Cagle. It's got stories from Brazil, China, France, Estonia, Nigeria, South Korea, and a lot of other places. I got into horror pretty big in, like, mid-2020, and that has kind of kept the same.
Gee, I wonder why.
I wonder why. What do you mean? I'm a very nice person.
Not a comment on your character, a comment on the timing.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah. That's kind of weird. I don't know what it is. I started writing horror, all of that stuff, so I just really enjoyed it. But obviously, a lot of the horror I read when I started was stuff that was kind of more in the quote-unquote classics of horror of the last, 50 years, which heavily favors people like Stephen King and US and UK writers. So I've been sort of branching out and exploring other forms of horror expression. And so the Valancourt book, and there are other world horror books as well, but this is one that's going to be, I think, really wonderful for me to experience sort of how people envision ghost stories and haunted houses and other kinds of terrifying things from other cultural expressions. So this is going to be really exciting when this comes out, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, let's move on to other people. I believe now we're on Paul.
Yes, we're on Paul for a book he's interested in 2022. Okay, so I really enjoyed R.F. Kuang's Poppy War trilogy. Even though some people think the first novel is YA, I don't know why, because people are idiots and stupid.
Wasn't there a genocide in that?
I mean, teenagers can do that too.
Genocide doesn't make it not YA.
I mean,
look
fair.
at Animorphs.
But that's a side issue. Anyway, she has a new book coming out in 2022 called Babel, or the Necessity of Violence, an Arcane History of the Oxford Transfers Revolution. Which, if you don't like that title already, and you haven't seen the cover, which is a beautiful tower in black and white, I don't know how to actually sell this book to you. It's basically an alternate 19th century England where translation and magic work together, and it's going to deconstruct colonialism and cultural clashing and serving yourself versus serving your country and secret societies, and this seems to be completely what I jam. I'm like magic and words and translation and deconstructing 19th century colonialism. Yeah, I'm there for it.
I also saw that, and it did look very interesting.
Pre-orders are love, Sean. Pre-orders are love. As somebody on this podcast says a lot. Pre-orders are love, Sean.
Well, that takes us to the last person.
That takes us to Brandon.
Oh, wait, that's me.
That is you.
So, in keeping with the tradition that has been established with my favorite book of last year, my favorite book of this year is also Caribbean fiction. I would very much like to put on folks' radar the book When We Were Birds by Ayanna Lloyd Banwo. Ayanna is a Trini writer. This is her first novel. It's strongly steeped in Trini folklore that has been somewhat warped and adapted for the novel's purposes. Even Trinidad itself, the author has mentioned in interviews, is somewhat warped and shifted for the purposes of telling this thrilling, horrific story about how these two characters are not only conflicted by potential attraction to each other, but they're conflicting relationships with the nature of death and how one performs rituals around death. It strikes me as very interesting. I think it looks dope. The cover looks dope. I dig more Trini literary fiction that is obviously actually fantastical. Everything about this I am definitely in love with. I am pre-ordering it now. I am going to read it page one as soon as it appears on my doorstep. I'm going to preach about this book immediately to everyone that I know. So if you're looking for some interesting Caribbean fiction, When We Were Birds by Ayanna Lloyd Banwell.
Also one I'm looking forward to. All right, let's get to media. So we're going to go to Paul. Paul, what is a media object you are looking forward to in 2022?
Okay, so while you are a Star Wars baby, Sean, I imprinted early on Star Trek.
Come on.
Yes, what you don't like my pick? You want me to pick something else?
We don't have to do this Star Wars for Star Trek fight. Like, no, whose starship would win in a fight?
Right.
God.
No,
let's measure our starship dicks. Let's do it. Whoa.
But anyway, I imprinted early on Star Trek and the whole idea of Strange New Worlds, and that it happens to be the title of the media property I'm interested in, Strange New Worlds, which is the story of Captain Pike on the Enterprise, and it looks like, from the teasers and from the stuff it looks like a diverse group of characters under Captain Pike, going out there and having fun and exploring and seeing what's out there. And that's what the joy of, I mean, yes, Deep Space Nine is probably objectively the best Star Trek out there. Voyager squandered the idea. The Next Generation was sometimes a cruise lounge in space floating around, but the original series, I think, really gets the whole idea of going out there on the edge of possibility and probabilities, finding out what's on the boundaries where here you be dragons or space dragons, in the case maybe. In this series, given where it takes place in the Star Trek universe, it's a very perilous and not all safe time. You don't go hearing out to the unknown without some risk, as we find out what eventually happens to Commander Pike or Captain Pike. So I'm really interested in seeing Strange New Worlds and seeing what sort of things they get up to, especially since this feels like a modern, inclusive take that we didn't have. I mean, the 60s show was inclusive for its time, and this show looks like it's going to actually be a Star Trek for the 21st century, and I appreciate that. And I want a positive vision. I mean, Discovery can sometimes get dark with mirror universes and jumping into the future of the Federation, but sometimes you just want to go pop out there and see what's beyond the next star system, and this series looks like that's going to give me what I want.
And it's going to have to be limited because eventually Pike dies.
But Pike doesn't die until the original series. So yes, they have plenty of time to explore.
Well, whenever he hears that classic music, he'll know it's his time.
Yes. I mean, eventually he's going to run. Eventually he's going to retire and run into Kirk, but that hopefully will be a long time from now.
Very possible. Well, fantastic. Who's next?
The only person I haven't picked to go next before would be Brandon, so I'll go pick Brandon.
So this is a unique pick for me because I know very little about it, and as a result, I'm very jazzed about the potential that it might actually be very intriguing based on things that I've already consumed by these people. And I'm probably going to butcher these names, but I'm trying my very best. Yantia Fries and Baran Bo Odar, the creators of the Netflix series Dark, which is very wild and very interesting if you're into thrilling time travel shenanigans, announced in late 2020 or early 2021 that they're working on a new series for Netflix called 1899, for which there is very little information. There is a teaser on YouTube and just one, very quick synopsis. A group of European migrants leave London on a steamship to start new lives in New York City, but when they encounter another migrant ship adrift in the open sea, their journey begins to turn into a nightmare. How? Why? What's on the ship? All very interesting questions that I'd like to discover. But because I've seen Dark and enjoyed Dark, I'm just curious to see what they're willing to do here. They haven't said very much about the show. Obviously, there's only the one teaser on Netflix right now. There is literally no image of the show. So it has the potential to be either a sleeper hit or a very bad thing that people will forget. But I'm banking on the former. because Dark was a knockout when
So
it just
good.
came out, and Netflix didn't even let people know that it existed until it was almost done. So, $18.99, like, get in on that now in the hopes that it will be a good thing, because it's probably going to rock.
Yeah,
Fair.
you're hoping it's going to rock, and remember, rebellions are built on hope.
Oh God.
Oh, Star Wars references. Woo!
See, I'm trying to bridge us again.
Sometimes
okay.
nerds aren't worth it. But I'll take that from you, Paul. Just because it's you, just because I love you, Paul, I'll tolerate it. Good lord.
Oh, fair.
So, next, Iori, what are you looking forward to in terms of media?
It's going to have to be Recycle of Penguin Drum, which is going to be the new Mawaru Penguin Drum movie. The original TV series, like, I don't think I can always recommend it in good conscience because it handles trauma and particularly dysphoria in some really clumsy ways. I am hoping that the movie remake is just going to, let's just excise episode 15 of the anime from the canon. That's my prayer. That said, like, weird, problematic, predatory trans stereotypes aside and so forth, Mawaru Penguin Drum takes a really compelling look at how Japanese society stigmatizes the relatives of criminals, and there's a lot of weird social punishment that happens when you are related to a criminal. Even if you had, no input into their actions, even if you were, a child who had no idea what your family was getting up to. And I think that's a really important thing to be talking about. Mawaru Penguin Drum grapples with both how we look at criminality in Japan and the lasting scars of the 1995 Aum Shinrikyo sarin gas incident. I'm not selling this very well. This sounds like a trauma fest. And, in a lot of ways it is, but it also has some really great dream logic, great art, great music that make it a little easier to take. And it does occupy a very special place in my heart. So I'm looking forward to revisiting it.
Nice.
Cool.
I'm curious about it because it's Ikuni after all, but...
Mm-hmm.
I'm mostly curious because it's called Penguin Drum,
Mhm.
which just sounds very quirky.
Certainly there's a great deal of quirky action going on.
I expect nothing less.
At least you, Sean.
On to me. My media thing, I have to say, is going to be Stranger Things Season 4, which is supposedly coming out this year, which fits into many of the things that I'm interested in, including horror and the 80s, because I don't live in the 80s. Paul remembers them very well because he used to have 80s hair, but I was only born in the 80s, so I don't remember what it was like to be really hard into Bon Jovi. So I'm just really looking forward to it. I literally know nothing about this new season because I just don't follow anything anymore because I like just kind of walking in blind or walking in without an awareness. And so Stranger Things is just going to be really interesting. I love the show. The first 3 seasons are all varying degrees of good, with some being great and exceptional. I love the show. I'm very curious to see how they continue to have these characters grow and change because they're basically on the cusp of adulthood by the time this series is up. So what kinds of weird things are they gonna get into now? How is the Upside Down gonna come into this? Is Hopper really dead? ? If he is, I'm gonna cry. But, I'll deal with it. I'll be fine. So, Stranger Things. Also, lots of inspiration for D&D campaigns because they always play D&D in that show.
Absolutely. When we recently played Tales from the Loop, the GM was definitely channeling some Stranger Things into that
I
game.
like weird. Weird
Yeah.
is fun in games.
It is.
Let's get to our final category, others. Other stuff, the best related word category. I am going to throw it to Iori. Iori, what is your other thing you would like to share with us for 2022?
Bayonetta 3! Bayonetta 3, I have been waiting since 2017. If it gets delayed again, I will cry myself to sleep every night for the rest of the year. I have been waiting so long for this. This is truly one of my favorite video game franchises. hopefully they will correct Bayonetta's model, because when they revised her character model between the first and second games, they just gave her very severe scoliosis so that her rib cage was sitting at an angle that brought it almost horizontal. They just really overdid that S-curve of the spine. So I'm really hoping that they're going to fix it. And also, I'm super excited about the new game environments in Tokyo, which look like they are super faithful to the actual neighborhoods. Like, in the new trailer, she's running through the Shibuya Scramble Crossing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Lush that I go to sometimes. There's also going to be a fight inside a train car on the Yamanote line, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
It does indeed sound wild.
Brandon, I am picking on you.
Okay.
What a phrasing.
Duly noted. Sometimes I deserve being picked on. So, earlier I mentioned a game called Shiver. I really dig Shiver. Shiver is really cool. A lot of how it is written, its original book, is framed towards, do you want to be Jason Voorhees? Do you just want to be a run-of-the-mill zombie or vampire? And I guess at some point, while they were still trying to figure out fulfillment for the book while it was after the first Kickstarter was done, they decided, you know what? What if you actually wanted to play the actual Dracula? What if you just wanted to be Bram Stoker's Dracula and not just this poser that we put in this book? What if you wanted to be Nosferatu? What if you just wanted to actually engage with classical Gothic horror as it was described? So now they're coming out with an entirely different book. Shiva Gothic is supposed to launch sometime in the next few months. I already have it saved on Kickstarter because as soon as it opens, I'm going to back that one too. Even though I still am waiting for the physical first book because I really enjoyed the first Shiva game. And I'm very interested, obviously, as a writer, as someone who dabbles very briefly in horror, as a fan of classic horror canon. I think that it would be really cool to try to not only find a way through play to actively portray those exact same spaces and those exact same works, but do weird and silly things with it instead. What if Dracula, but the only hunter you have is Mina Harker? That would be rad. So yes, I'm very excited for that when that starts. It launches in March, actually. So expect to see me make lots of terrible financial decisions on the 1st of March. So I can tell you all more about Shiver Gothic later in the year.
Brandon, if we play a one-shot that's Dracula, I just want you to know right now that I am calling dibs on being the cowboy.
Noted. I guess that means I have to do the thing now.
Brandon, you're just reminding me of like the sea of RPGs that I have supported on Kickstarter. I have so many.
I have the same problem as you, Sean. And you know what's the part that sucks the most? If it weren't for the internet, I'd probably never play any of them. If it weren't for y'all, I'd probably just have games and read them for fun.
3 cheers for Twitch.
Indeed.
All right, Brandon, who's going next?
Have you gone yet, Sean?
No, but neither has Paul, I don't believe.
That's fair, but I'll pick on you.
So there's this little thing that has started this year and had a session 0 on January 20th, one day before we were recording, which may or may not involve some members of this particular episode, which might be a podcast, it might be an RPG. I'll let you decide on your own when you go to speculatesf.com and you look for it. Episode 284. Because there is a new RPG actual play running, I believe it is Evil Hat Publications' Girl by Moonlight RPG system, in a game referred to as Fractal Spire, if I got that right, that I am super looking forward to. I have not listened to the Session 0 yet, because it just came out yesterday. Like, I work and have a job. But I'm going to listen to it. And I'm very excited about this. And I know that some people have not heard about some of the folks that are on this particular podcast. It's GM'd by this person named Brandon O'Brien, which I don't think anybody's ever heard of before. He's just this very new GM. He didn't just spend 3,000 episodes GMing another game on Speculate, which might have been called The Case of the Cindered Seal. I don't know. It's also going to have as people on it Valerie Valdez, who is a friend of the show. It also has Yoiko Wayne Lin and friend of the show and member of the show, Michael R. Underwood, and also this other person I've never heard of before named Yori Kusano, who may or may not also have been involved in the case of the Cindered Seal. So, look, this game sounds really fun. It's sort of like a take on, if I understand the game correctly, a Magical Girls type game with some genre-bending elements. It sounds super interesting and really fun. Evil Hat Publications has also done a lot of really cool games in the past, which obviously you've played. I'm so stoked to see this, and I cannot wait to enjoy it because it sounds bonkers and bananas, and I love it.
I did watch the Session Zero, and it is bonkers and bananas, and I can't wait to see where they go.
I'm also extremely excited about where this is going to go.
So am I. If you thought that the Session Zero for Fractal Spire is wild, then I'm very excited to see what actually playing the game is going to give you.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about who this Brandon O'Brien and Iori Kusano is, because I've just never heard of them before, so there we go. Well, Paul, it's now your turn now that I'm done embarrassing Brandon.
Oh, Lord.
So, generally, when it comes to video games, I generally play strategy games. Civilization. I've been playing Civilization since they've been playing it on stone tablets in 100 AD. No. I've played all the versions of Civilization. Strategy games, Civilization, Old World, Humankind, all that was disappointing. That's my usual jam. Occasionally, I will badly play shoot 'em games. As someone else here on the show has played with, I've played PUBG, but the shoot 'em up game I use to de-stress the most is Borderlands. Borderlands is set in a universe where you're basically looking for these alien vaults and basically shooting aliens and creatures and all sorts of things and picking up guns. It's a very simple game, but it is very genre and is very aware of genre, very aware of culture. They had a bunch of DLCs, and one of the DLCs for that was called Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, which basically tells the story of one of the characters coming to terms with the death of another character by having them play a role-playing game, and you're playing in that role-playing game. And that DLC proved so popular, basically turning this into a role-playing game experience, that they decided to create an entire game, which is basically Borderlands, except in a role-playing game universe called Tiny Tina's Wonderland. And that comes out this year. So instead of shooting guns, you're shooting spells and arrows and other sorts of things. And I'm really excited to play this.
I remember hearing about this, and this does sound really fun.
I love Borderlands and their aesthetic and their inclusivity. I mean, in Assault on Dragon Keep, they make fun of griefers and trolls and talk about inclusivity. It's a game that is quite well aware of things like Gamergate and fights back against them. So I like to support Borderlands and their games, and they're just a lot of fun to just go shoot creatures on a desert landscape. So I'm curious how they will do this in a full-on role-playing game setting.
Nice.
Tiny Tina's Wonderlands does in fact look cool.
There you go. Those are our things. If you would like to let us know what your things are, favorite things from 2021 or things you're looking forward to in 2022, there are lots of ways that you can do so and let us know. The best way is to email us at skiffyandfanty@gmail.com or send us a tweet at skiffyandfanty on the Twitters. You can, of course, let us know if you have any topic suggestions or questions that you'd like us to answer at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at skiffyandfanty and get the newsletter at skiffyandfanty.com/newsletter. And as always, if you like what we do, we really appreciate support at patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. Literally any level, even if it's just $1 a month, honestly makes me feel good inside when I see people join and hang out with us. We have a Discord if you would like to hang out with us in Discord and do writing sprints or talk about games or, I don't know, just share cat pictures, whatever makes you happy. You can do that. Obviously, give us love at iTunes and other places, and so on and so forth. As for me, you can find me at Sean Duke on Twitter, SeanDuke.net, Alphabet Streams on Twitch, and Patreon.com/TheJoyFactory.
You can find me at The Rising Tides on Twitter and on Twitch, Patreon.com/The Rising Tides, and on SpeculateSF.com, where I'm currently GMing Fractal Spire, a Girl by Moonlight actual play.
You can find me at Iori Kusano on Twitter, kusanoiori.com, and also playing in the Fractal Spire at SpeculateSF.com. Please note that my name is spelled I-O-R-I. There are no L's in Iori.
And you can find me, Prince Justin, on Twitter, patreon.com/PrinceJustin. Prince Justin on Twitch, although I don't stream or anything. I just watch other people stream. And on many blogs and podcasts, including Tor.com, Nerds of a Feather. I show up all over the internet.
And please do note that Justin is spelled the traditional Roman way, J-V-S-T-I-N.
Thank you, Rory. I keep forgetting to tell people that.
Well, we did it. The first episode of the year is recorded and done. And so, as required according to the Skiffy and Fanty bylaws that have been put into our Constitution, which we voted on collectively, I have to make it awkward now. And so, to do that, I will just remind folks that throughout this year, I will be placing subtle hints as to a mystery that is going on underneath the Skiffy and Fanty show that nobody, including members of this podcast, know about. But when it is concluded at the end of the year, when we do our holiday special Torture Cinema, there will be a reveal, and it will be so alarming that 3 members of the show's crew will pee their pants with joy.
With joy. I like that you had to qualify that because I just wanted to be sure. Dear listeners, I have no doubt in my mind that Sean is absolutely telling the truth this time. This is not a bit anymore. I'm sorry.
I've been pushing for a Skiffy and Fanty ARG for a while, so I'm delighted to hear that Sean's listening to me.
Well, you're influencing me a little bit. Yeah. All right, folks. And on that note, awkward ending and scene.
Bye, everyone.
If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.